Yes. So I did my project on gambling. And quick question for y'all: if I gave you the opportunity to flip a coin, and you had the option of winning $100 or losing 50, would y'all take the chance of winning that 100? Anyone? Yes. Oh, a bunch. Oh, so we have a degenerate, and everyone else is good. No. All right. All right. So of course that's gambling. You're taking the chance. And let's go ahead and state what gambling actually is. Gambling is when you bet something valuable, such as money, on the outcome of a game or event where the result is uncertain. You take a risk because you hope to win, but the outcome could be random. You might even lose due to a mistake in judgment or just bad luck. Recently, gambling has increased exponentially over the recent years as more advanced stuff has come out, such as sports betting or online casinos. Around $11 trillion are gambled yearly, and that does not include illegally gambled money. With so many people supporting gambling and more individuals inclined to do it, it's starting to become more harmful for our society. So, what does gambling actually do to you? Well, gambling is highly addictive. It leads to compulsive gambling, which is pretty much just gambling off of instinct and not really thinking about what you are doing. And so, gambling is tied into the brain's reward system. When a player has a big win or hits the jackpot, the body releases dopamine, producing the intense pleasure that the player feels after each win. Once the body reaches that heightened dopamine level and experiences that rush, it becomes much harder to resist the urge to chase that high again. With the release of dopamine, it becomes easy to gamble repeatedly without thinking twice, almost like it's a habit. With consistent gambling, the brain builds a tolerance to dopamine, and the bets that once brought enjoyment no longer have the same effect. The brain's reward system becomes less responsive, causing the person to take bigger risks to achieve the same rush. Once someone reaches this point, it becomes even harder to stop gambling. Since gambling triggers brain responses similar to those caused by drugs, compulsive gamblers can also experience severe withdrawal symptoms when they attempt to quit. So, with this information, a gambling addiction would look like trying to control, cut back, or stop gambling without success, feeling restless or irritable when you try to cut down on gambling, or gambling to escape problems or relieve feelings of helplessness, guilt, anxiety, or depression. These are just some key signs. So, how often do gambling addictions actually occur? About 2 to 7% of youth end up with a gambling disorder, compared to only about 1% of adults. Many of the gambling disorders originate in your adolescent years. College student College students gamble more often than the general population, and they're starting to lean more towards the sports betting aspect of gambling. About 2.4% of adult or women have a gambling disorder, and 4.2% of men end up with a gambling disorder, meaning men are roughly 1.5 times more likely to have a gambling problem than women. In recent years, however, this gap has started to shrink. Gambling disorders may form through a parent who has a gambling problem. There have been many studies to understand if there is a connection between gambling disorders and genetics. It is estimated that gambling disorder development is 50% from environmental and 50% from genetics. Drugs also have a huge impact on whether you have a gambling addiction. The majority of gambling addicts also suffer from the abuse of alcohol, tobacco, or many other drugs like them. Also, many gambling addicts have personality issues such as ADHD, schizophrenia, and antisocial personality disorders. Studies have shown that someone with a psychiatric disorder is 17 times more likely to have a gambling problem, which that's insane. So now you want to look into the casinos, how they use psychological things to help people to gamble more, what they do. The first thing is the design and layout of the casino itself. People do not realize that casinos are made to bring people's attention and make them want to sit down and play. Every part of that casino makes you want to play more, and the layout is designed to be easily navigated and has beautiful decor. And also, they place the games in certain spots to make sure you see it. And also, another thing is there's no windows or clocks in the casino. This helps the player not have access to how long they're there or what time of day it is. This helps a player get into a so-called zone. Many people who go into a casino get into that zone and almost forget, or try to go to that casino to get into that zone, so they almost forget what is going on in their life. It's kind of like a cop out. Another thing they use is lights and sounds. And you see this perfectly in slot machines. They're nice and bright. They start having these loud noises. They make a lot of noise just to bring in your attention. And this is also said to bring in for riskier bets. It makes you bet more. Another thing a casino does is they have near misses. This is where if you need 5 emblems, they only give you 4. This is a move by the casino to get the player excited, and with that close, and being that close to a jackpot, they believe they have better odds than before. This is very wrong. Now, near misses may not work on every player, but if you have a gambling problem, it is then more tempting to think that you are going to win. Another thing they do is they give you chips or vouchers. Another small thing is, instead, when you go in with cash, you end up with a voucher, which is a little piece of paper that has how much money you spent. Now, it doesn't feel as much as like you have as much money, but it's another thing that they do. And they also do chips with table games, which you can see there, it has just a small amount, and you wouldn't think it's actually that much. So, and then another thing they do is they offer you free stuff. Once someone gambles enough money in the casino begins to give free stuff so that you can come back and give more money. Things like drinks, hotel rooms, cars, or even if you gamble enough, a private jet. And this, I see this very often because my brother, he has gone on cruises recently, and he's been gambling so much in the casino, they're sending him free cruises to come back and gamble even more money. So, personal finance guy. Another thing you have to really look at is a house edge. A house edge is having a statistical probability of winning every time. For example, you have a roulette board. As you can see, there's 36 red and black numbers. If you put a bet on one of those numbers and it hits, you only get paid 1 to 35. So you're not even fully getting your money back. But you could say, all right, let's put it on the red or black. Well, then they throw in the green numbers. So you statistically are less than 50% chance. So they have that edge. You will never have a 50% or 50-50 odds in a casino. Some of the things that people are drawn to is slot machines. Well, slot machines and a keno, which is like a bingo, have the worst statistical probabilities. The house has a 15% edge on slot machines, which they're 15% more likely to win every time. And the keno has a 20 to 40% edge. So that's terrible. The best statistical odds is baccarat, craps, and blackjack, where they only have around a 1% chance of winning every time. So that's a little bit better. So with all that said, as you can see, gambling doesn't sound very fun because you're not likely to win. So let's see what the Bible says about it. In Proverbs 13:11, Solomon says, "Wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it." Those who usually obtain their riches through quick access tend to blow through it because they do not know how much it takes to gain or obtain that money. This ties in with gambling. People who win big gambling tend to think that is likely to occur again. This conception is wrong, and they will blow through that money quicker than they got it. The person who gains their money slowly through means of working and gaining that money over time will better someone as a person. With slow growth, you gain experience and wisdom to understand the value of what you actually have worked for. Something like working a job or where you should gain money, or even putting the money you would go to gamble into something like the stock market where you are guaranteed to gain money over time, is much, instead of just blowing that money and taking the chance of blowing that money in the casino. So, even after the clear warning of why you shouldn't really gamble, if you so happen to ignore it, you need to understand this. So in 1 Timothy 6:6-9, it says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into the world, and we can take nothing out of it. But if we have food and clothing, we will be content with that. Those who want to get rich fall into temptation and a trap, and into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge people into ruin and destruction." People that have a gambling addiction lust for that feeling of winning big and want to receive that big pay. Also, people will just gamble their life away by spending all their money in search for more money. Oftentimes, this will destroy that person's relationships with people because that person begins to focus only on money, and money begins to drive that person down many more bad decisions. People must begin to understand contentment because that is the backbone of gambling correctly. Being content is understanding that God has given us things, and one of those things is money, and we should value that. When you lose money in the casino, you need to be content and not try to fight back to get back even by gambling with even more money. If you are not okay with losing whatever amount you lost, you should have never been gambling with that much money in the first place. With all that said, contentment is the most valuable thing throughout all aspects of our lives, especially if you are going to gamble. So, in conclusion, I highly recommend to not gamble. However, if you are going to go against this clear warning, understand the idea of contentment. You can gamble and it be a harmless thing that can be fun. However, you are taking a huge chance of heading down a path that will be hard to get off of. You can have a fun time with friends or go to a casino and play a few games, but you should not let it get much harsher than that. People need to understand that you are statistically going to lose in the long run. So, if you do win some money at some point in a casino, you need to know that you will not always do that. All the nice things that casinos have are built on people losing. So, think about these things before you take that step into gambling for the first time. That's it.
Yes, y'all got any comments for Preston?
So, something like enjoying gambling, you kind of want to you can almost see when you prioritize gambling as something high in your life, like going to a casino or something, and focusing on trying to make almost like an income, like really trying to, like, you can't stop, like you're just sitting there, you can't stop. But like someone that's just going to have fun, like my brother, he understands like the fact that, all right, I'm gonna lose money probably, but let's have a little fun with it. Like he goes in with the mindset like I know I'm gonna lose probably, so let's not sit here and blow through all my money. Let's just have fun with it and not try to just be so into it like you can't stop, like you're just ooh.
Like that, and I was gonna like a follow up to that. I really like the answer. So the difference is going in intending to make money. That's a really problematic way of looking at it.
Exactly.
Versus going in and saying, I'm probably gonna lose money, but it's gonna be a good time.
Exactly.
So whatever. Practical question: does someone like your brother? Does he like? I don't know if budget is the right word for this, but does he account for this is X amount of that I'm planning on?
Yeah, so he usually goes into it like he's thinking maybe I might lose. He might go into a different night. He might say, "All right, 200 is my max," and he sets that aside. And he's like, sometimes he leaves his wallet in the room, and when he's like at least on the cruise, he leave his wallet in the room, and he'd only come in with that $200, just so then he's like, "All right, this is all I can lose." So then you're not sitting there just pulling more and more money out your wallet.
And so worst case scenario, it's a $200 night for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's like something I forgot to say that you should go into a casino or something like that, like thinking, all right, what am I willing to spend on a nice night at dinner? That should be your max. Like that just is something that you shouldn't be sitting there just throwing out a bunch of money. It should be like, all right, I'm willing to spend this much money, and that's it. That's all I'm going to do.
The kind of house advantage that you talked about,
Mhm.
house edge, that
Mhm.
makes a lot of sense to me.
Yes.
Do you know if there's any laws or anything like that where, like, could they have a machine that's like, no one's wrong on this machine? There's no rules on that. As long as people buy it, it's whatever.
No casino, like no. There's no rules on anything like that. Like all of the casinos and like they don't really care. All they're there to take your money. So that I mean, something. So when we were on our cruise, and they had this little like box shuffler instead of it being an actual little shoe thing. Like all the deck of cards already set, it's sitting there cycling cards in through the decks. So I mean, you would think they have a little key or computer thing that's saying how many people are there,
Yeah.
and it's just sitting there shuffling. So
So the house edge really has nothing to do. Like there's no question of fairness. It's just how much can they push.
exactly.
Which match that with, so again, follow up, the psychology isn't really a question. The psychology of a casino and really any gambling game is crazy to me. Like here you have a building that is built for, so my family took a visit to Las Vegas when I was in high school. And I don't know, like you go through an airport and most of the kiosks, like places where you can, they have like vending machines where you can buy like straight up phones and AirPods and stuff, right?
Yeah.
But all those are typically up against the wall. Water fountains up against the wall, all that stuff. You go to Las Vegas and they got slot machines right down the middle of the hallway. Like you literally have to get out of their way, right? Yeah. And so just the psychology of it matching with the fact that, yeah, as long as we can get people to play it, let's keep going. That's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You had mentioned that being addicted.
Yes.
How do you know? Like, if you go into it, like, I'm going to do this, you never know just starting it.
No, you don't know. That's why I kind of take the side of like take the clear warning. Like don't do it. Like I wouldn't recommend going to do that for anyone because for one thing you're taking a chance of losing all your money. You're taking a chance of losing money, which you could go ahead and put that money that you would gamble with into something that's a guarantee to make money. Like something like that's why I mentioned the stock market because you're guaranteed to make money there if you just keep it in like an index fund or something to go on. So, I mean, there is a line of where you don't know. That's why you're taking a big chance. That's like a huge chance of heading down a path like you don't know. And it's just like something with drugs. You don't know if you do it, you're taking a chance of being hooked for the rest of your life. Like you never know. So that answers your question.
Classmates or anything?
Are you saying that?
No, I mean I wouldn't say they should. It wouldn't be really a great idea. I don't think they ever will. No, but no, because I mean you're gonna like you tear down all the casinos. I mean, if you're going to gamble, you can. Like I'm advising against it, but also like for some people, yes, but I wouldn't recommend going to them. And if everyone would stop, they would have to go down. They would have to be teared down. So. Oh, jeez.
Right.
Yes.
A couple weeks ago, I was watching last week's night and how we should deal with try to like stop it from.
Oh yeah. So I did hint on that in my paper, but I was like, if I added it on here, it'd been like I'd be over time, and I didn't really want to mess with that. So I did go into the sports gambling a little bit, and I don't really like it because nowadays, like people at like our age and our generation, they're like faking or they're like signing in with using their mom's name or something to be able to gamble, and then also some states don't even regulate it, and they're having to turn on these VPNs to like say they're in another state. So you're doing a bunch of illegal activity just so then you could most likely lose. So I don't really like the idea of like the online sports betting stuff.
Well, and also like it seems like you mentioned that statistically when people start gambling when they're younger, the likelihood of them it's like 4 times more likely that they end up with an addiction.
Exactly.
And it seems like moving all this stuff online has made it just exponentially more likely that you start younger because now you don't have to actually go.
Yeah.
It's like with everything, like same problem, just a much more efficient way of getting at it, which means people are younger and younger getting involved with it.
Exactly.
Just multiplies the problem.
Exactly. And like with being at a younger age, you're more susceptible to have that gambling addiction. Like you're just, it's just how your brain functions. You're more like, it's like more of a spongy. You're kind of like more into it. So just taking that chance with having younger people open to and have the availability that they can do, it's just, I don't think that's terrible. Mm-mm. I did not. I did not look into that really. But I mean, they used to like they so called. I don't know. Well, I wouldn't know if it's like the same, but even back in like Jesus's times, like at the cross, they were casting lots, like for his garments. So I mean, they were kind of gambling in a way back then, but I don't know really who opened the first casino. So
Anybody else? What time do we get out of this class? Okay. Tough question.
all right, let's hear.
So I taught economics for a while, and I played like Mrs. Bowers. I played a stock market game with my students.
Mm-hmm.
I got this angry gram from a parent saying my child will not be participating in this because I don't think their Christian school should be teaching gamble. At the point, I think it was like my first or second year of teaching. I didn't really know how to handle it. I think I know what kind of answer I would give now. I'm curious if you're in that situation. Don't play the stock market because that's also.
I mean, if we're talking like, if you're talking day trading, I would 100% say that is. I would say that's gambling. If you're doing something in a way that, like, if something like an index fund where it's all the top companies and statistically, it's always gone up about every year. That's kind of, I mean, that's almost guaranteed. It's not like you're not playing with the odds there. Like, it's gonna go up. So I don't know. That is a very.
So go back to your definition of gambling. I think you sort of answered the question. I think where it says the outcome could be random.
Yes.
Right? I think this helps us think about gambling a little bit. It helps you like further your thoughts here.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that makes gambling, I don't believe is risk. There's risk involved, but there's risk in buying a house. There's risk in investing in stocks, right?
Yeah.
The thing that makes gambling is that the odds are by definition against.
Mm-hmm.
When you invest in something, the more money you pour into a company, the more likely you are to win because the more likely that company is going to succeed.
Yes.
Whereas gambling, like you just showed us, there are games that are actually bent in the opposite direction, where the more money you put in, the less likely you are.
Exactly.
And so it helps us think about gambling a little bit. And it's what you said at the very beginning. If you go into this with the mentality, this is how I make money.
Yeah.
So you're setting yourself up for failure. And last call, anybody got anything? Also, I gotta say, like, isn't it awesome how practical the Bible is?
Oh, I know.
Where the Bible's like, hey, if you earn money quickly, people who earn money quickly typically don't respect that money. Hey, young people, every time someone comes up to you with a quick scheme, remember it is exactly that. It is a scheme. Let's say you get that money. Best case scenario. Worst case scenario is you end up in the hole, right? Mm-hmm. Best case scenario, you get that money with no respect for it. You haven't earned it in the deepest sense possible. And what does the scripture say further? It's someone who takes a while, someone who puts in that work. You have a lot more respect for what God's blessed you with. It's really important life lesson to learn. All right, good job, Preston.